This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
In the Yotzros of Parsha Shekalim, we have a number of very interesting expressions. The Yotzor begins, Az ra'isa, v'siparta, v'hechanta, v'chakarta, v'madadata, v'chalta, v'shakalta, v'amadata. It says you saw, you counted, you prepared, you investigated, you measured. And it continues on, v'sikamta, umanisa, v'safarata, v'katzavta. What are all these lashonos? And it ends, v'dibarta, v'amarta. What are all these lashonos in the Yotzros of Parsha Shekalim? So the Siddur Otzar Tfilos brings down the Hakdama of the Pasach Shulchan of Rabbi Mishkalav, who said an incredible pshat from the Vilna Gaon. That the Vilna Gaon says that these expressions, if you count them, are actually 39 expressions, and they correspond to the Lamed Tes Malachos of Masa Bereshis. We know that Rebbeinu Shem created the world, and He rested on Shabbos. How many different Maisim did Hashem create the world with? Lamed Tes, and that's why we rest on Shabbos. So the Otzar Tfilos adds a very important insight. Because we know in general, what are the things we're not allowed to do on Shabbos? Where do we learn out the Yisra Malacha? We learn it out from the Hakamas HaMishkan, from the Asiyas HaMishkan. It's actually a Machloikis. Is it from the construction of the Mishkan or the everyday running of the Mishkan? But be it as it may, we learn it out from the Mishkan. Question is, what in the world does the Mishkan have to do with what we're not allowed to do on Shabbos? Why should we not be allowed to do those activities that were needed for the Mishkan? The reason we rest on Shabbos has nothing to do with the Mishkan. The reason we rest on Shabbos is to commemorate that Hashem created the world in 6 days and He rested on Shabbos. So our observance of Shabbos is connected to Bria Shemayim Va'aretz. It's not connected to the Mishkan. But the pshat is like this. The pshat is, if we're going to try to determine what activities Rebbeinu Shalom used to create the world, mi yavai b'soid Hashem, who could possibly fathom what type of activities were needed to create the world? We have no access to that. But what we have is, we have a Mishkan. What is the concept of the Mishkan? The Mishkan is a microcosm of the universe. So whatever activities were needed to construct the Mishkan, we're able to, through the Maisa Mishkan, have access to what activities were needed to create the world. As the Gemara tells us, Yodeya haya Betzalel, L'tzaref ha'oisiyah shenivru b'hem, Shemayim va'aretz. Chazal say Betzalel knew how to combine the letters with which Hashem created heaven and earth. Okay, good for Betzalel. Why do we need to know that Betzalel knew how to do that? The answer is, in order to construct a Mishkan, you need to know how to build a universe. So how did Betzalel know how to make a Mishkan? He must have known the secret formula with which the Rebbeinu Shalom created Shamayim va'aretz. Okay, so therefore, these Lashonos in the Yotzros for Parsha Shekalim are the various activities that the Rebbeinu Shalom used to create the world. So in fact, the Lamed Tes Malachos on Shabbos are not Lamed Tes Malachos needed to build the Mishkan, but the Lamed Tes Malachos needed to build the Mishkan are in fact the 39 categories of Malacha that the Rebbeinu Shalom used to create the world. Ad Kan, this is a shiur that we've given before, but I want to just be moisef. My friend Rabbi Aaron Jacoby told me that he heard from Chaim Kaplan in Eretz Yisrael that there's an incredible Haturim in the beginning of this week's Parsha. The Haturim says on the word la'asos, says in Pasuk Aleph, Eila hadvarim asher tziva Hashem la'asos oisam. This is the Hakdama to Shabbos. So the Haturim says that the word la'asos could be read Lamed Tesha, 39, meaning a remez to the 39 forbidden categories of Malacha. Okay, says the Haturim, when the Rebbeinu Shalom created the world, says Vayakhel, this is not the only time that we take the word lasos and we make it lamed tesha. The lasos of Vayakhel is also lamed tesha. Says the Haturim, if you look in Parshas Bereshis and you count up all the vayases and vayivra and vayavdel, all the action words in Bereshis, you get 39 action words in Bereshis. Keneged Lamed Tes Malachos Shabbos, and as we pointed out from the Gaon, that the Lamed Tes Malachos that were needed to build a Mishkan are actually an insight and gives us access to what were the Lamed Tes Malachos with which HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. And here the Baal HaTurim is saying you could count up the verbs in Bereshis, and in fact you will come out to Lamed Tes Hafla V'Fela. And then the Baal HaTurim adds, if you count the number of words in this week's Parsha, until you get to the word Hashabas, also from the word Vayakhel Moshe, until you also have Lamed Tes milim aremet lamed tes malachas of Shabbos. But the real insight that we glean is that in fact the Rebbeinu Shalom created the world with lamed tes malachas. And Rav Kaplan added, if you look at the last two expressions in the Yotzer for Parshas Shekalim, they are v'dibarta v'amarta, dibur and amira, which we know is dibur a maisa. The Gemara usually says dibur is not a maisa. We know there are two categories of malacha that have a more lenient penalty than the other malachas. For example, lo yisvaru eish. Lo yisvaru eish is a man damar lelav yatzes. Why would lo yisvaru eish be lelav yatzes? So in the past we've said over for the Imrei Emes that perhaps it's because that lighting a fire was not in Bria Shamayim Va'aretz. As we know, the first fire was created on Matzoi Shabbos, but Lefi Darkenu, we could say that perhaps the malacha of Havara was B'dibur, or perhaps Ba'amira. Likewise, the Gemara brings down a Deya, Isi Bar Yehuda says, that there's one malacha you're not chayiv skila for. Which malacha would that be? Why would there be a malacha that you're not chayiv skila for? Perhaps that's one of the malachos with which Rebbeinu Shalom acted either b'dibur or b'amira, so perhaps it's not a full-fledged maisa, and therefore there would be one malacha that one would not be chayiv skila for. So, incredible insight about Haturim. The verbs in the beginning of Sefer Bereshis are tally up to Lamed Tes. Wishing everyone a wonderful Parshas Shekalim.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.